to the Potawatomi. And then Europeans started migrating to Indiana, starting with those French fur traders. But here come the British. Americans.
I didn't expect to be a teacher. I didn't grow up thinking I was going to be a teacher. I had paleontologist and basketball player and all sorts of unrealistic expectations on my mind. I'm Matt Wooden. I'm a 4th grade teacher here at Binford Elementary School. I like to go to coffee shops and do my reading and writing there, and I thought I'll make a coffee shop themed classroom. I brought the idea of Beanville here because the 4th grade curriculum is all about the state of Indiana and your local history, your state history. And I wanted to create a small town like other small towns that I know and love. Beanville is a little bit of a love letter to a lot of small Indiana towns, to places like Unionville, to places like Vernon, to places like Paoli, to Orleans, to all these small tucked away towns. I wanted to create an environment that was inspired by all of these wonderful small towns down here in the hills and hollers of southern Indiana. When you go to a small town in Indiana, they all seem like they're a little bit in the past. You know, part of it is because so many small towns in Indiana, they're towns that are declining. You know, business has left, or a factory has left, or jobs have left, and they're getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So when I think about Beanville, I think it's a present-day town that's really concerned with its history.
This object is, well, we would call this a cube. Quilt. It's a quilt, which is a specific type of folk art that's made by common people, a lot of times without any real training, that tells the story of someone.
I've been an incurable collector since I was very young. It started with rocks and fossils and those kinds of things. And it's just, I don't think I can shake it. It's just part of my identity. I see the stories and things, and I want to be surrounded with those things that have stories. So I try to bring in artifacts on a regular basis, and you look around the room and you see it, right? I mean, even today, something new arrived in the mail. I'm always looking for things that are interesting. And that quilt that was at an antique store in Iowa. My family was coming back from a road trip out west, and we stopped at an antique store in Iowa, and it caught my eye because at first I saw there was a Purdue pennant as part of it, and then I saw there was an Indiana pennant as part of it, and then I saw there was a pennant from the 1913 Indy 500, which is the 3rd race. You know, it's like very early in Indy 500 history, and I realized that's got to be an Indiana piece. And so I asked the folks at the antique store, and they said, "Yep, we got that in Indiana." And I said, "Well, I've got to take it back to Indiana. It belongs there." And I've brought it in for the last couple classes because it's a story. You look at that quilt, and even though I haven't been able to determine exactly who made it or for whom it was made, you look at it and you can really start to piece together that person's life.
What do you think you can tell about what was important to this World War I soldier based on the quilt that someone made in their honor? Where are you going to start it?
Maybe because of this flag, maybe they have been a soldier for a long time.
Okay, all right. So the United States flags are in all 4 of the corners of the quilt.
Believe it or not, I really try to be kind of picky about the things I bring into the classroom. You wouldn't know it from looking around. But I try to choose objects where kids can immediately start to picture themselves in the story of that artifact, in the story of the person to whom it belonged or who used it. And so that quilt, I just thought that was just a masterpiece. It was something it just elicits stories and ideas so easily.
My name is Chris Wilkins. I am the principal at Binford Elementary School. Mr. Wooden has created a classroom that really focuses on the students' social and emotional learning and well-being. He has created a community within inside the classroom. And when I first got to school and I saw Matt's classroom, I was just amazed. I'm like, there's a lot of stuff in here, but he makes it work. It looks like in your own little city. Matt has so many intricate sayings that only his students know that he does, to get them from one task to the next, and they just keep moving. And the classroom management is phenomenal because of it. And you can really tell that the kids love being in there. It's a special place.
I feel like it's different because a lot of other classes, they kind of have one big theme and that's all throughout the whole classroom. But this classroom has like the Green Bean Cafe that we're in right now, and then the main part of the classroom and the general store. It's all different parts.
Post office, like where we deliver mail to everyone else. We have a general store over there that has like pencils and things we can get. We also have a library which has all our books. We also have an art gallery or a museum where people can put things that they made for Mr. Wooden. And we also have this Green Bean Cafe, which is like a little cafe that we work in.
We have some routines and rituals here in Beanville that are unique, and they all start at the very beginning of the school year. The first week of the school year, there are a couple things that I think are really important. I think in that first week of the school year, kids need to know that I like them. They need to have that level of trust with me early on, and they need to know that they're going to enjoy their time together. And I think everything else you can do later. But I think just generating that excitement at the start of the year is really important. And part of generating that excitement, it's kind of like living in a small town. You have to figure out what's unique about you, what draws people to your particular town. We spend the first week of school learning songs, learning calls and responses, learning about our care cups, how those work, learning about our responsibilities for each other's feelings. And I don't usually pass out a single textbook that first week of school, but I think kids have to hit that first weekend and be ready to come back for that first Monday of the school year, knowing that they are excited to be here, and then I'm excited that they're here. So all of those little things, right? All of those little back home again, and they say, Indiana, or hear ye, and they say, all eyes on the king, or whatever it is, right? All of those little things are just, we had to find some things that are just us, because those are the things that kids get excited about. They get excited about those things that are just them.
Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you.
There's no escaping the hand. So when students arrive in the morning, I'm there in the hallway to greet them. We start with some kind of question or thought before they come in. Each day has a different set of tasks when they come in. When they come in after they've done that morning activity, usually we get together for a community circle and we might play some quick game together, or we might read a story together. I usually will have some sort of thought of the day up on the screen from some Hoosier. And so we try to have some sort of centralizing thought in the morning, whether it comes from a game we play or a book we read or a thought on the screen. Just something to drive our day. Usually during that community circle time, we go through our agenda for the day. There's a lot of safety in that for kids to know what's going to happen and in what order. And so the agenda's up there on the board every day for kids to check and see. Usually there's some sort of word of the day up there by our hashtag symbol. Today is sui generis. It's a Latin phrase that means of its own kind. Because this seemed like a sui generis kind of day, right? This was a day of its own kind, to have people come in and hear our stories and see what we do here. And so that word can be something that focuses our thoughts for the day too. In the morning, usually we're doing reading and writing activities, and whenever it's a natural fit, I like to try to connect those to our fourth grade curriculum.
Today we add a new chapter to our Indiana story. Take your right hand if you're right, left if you're left, put it over your eyes, and say, Dark Times in Indiana.
Dark times in Indiana.
We're going into a more dark period in Indiana history right now, where we'll talk about the forced evacuation of the Potawatomi. We'll talk about the Ku Klux Klan. We'll talk about sometimes about a century in Indiana history where there are a lot of episodes that are hard to think about and that we look back at and wish our story were different. But that's an important lesson too, is that our story doesn't always go the way that we want to go. We have regrets and we can look back at those and learn from them. A lot of times when we get to the end of the day, we get together and we read a story again, or we revisit our thought from the morning and wrap up our day together. Bookending our days, we have our good morning cheer and we have our good evening cheer. Those cheers are just, it's our welcome and it's our goodbye. When I ask the students on Friday, what are some things that you want other people to know about Beanville? The first thing they say are those cheers. If I were giving advice to a new teacher, what needs to be a part of your day, I think I would say have a good morning cheer to start the day and have a good evening cheer to end the day. There's something that's so community based about that. There's something that just galvanizes the group when there is something that they all do together and no one else in the world does. It's just our cheer.
Ready?
Let me hear those words out when we start the day. You say
G-O-O-P-M-O-R-N-I-N-G. Good morning. Hey, hey. Good morning. Let's start the day.
Well, let's start the day down here in our club.
So starting from my very first day as a teacher, I gave each student a cup and a pot of coffee beans. And the idea was just to give them a way to visually express how they were feeling. A full cup means that a student is coming in excited about the day, feeling cared for by their family or their friends or their teachers. And a cup that's a little less full maybe means that some of those pieces aren't in place yet that day. Maybe they had a rough morning. Maybe they got in an argument before they got on the bus. And I tell students early on in the year that there will be some days when they are tempted to think it's the worst day that they're ever going to have. And my challenge for them is when you come in and you fill that cup in the morning, or when you come in and you update that cup in the morning, you always need to have one bean in your cup. And we call that one bean the bean of hope. And the idea is that on our worst possible day, there's hope that the day can get better. And so that bean of hope is just a visual reminder for them that the day isn't hopeless. And typically by the end of the day, there are some other beans that have joined that bean of hope in their cup before they go home for the day. A few days ago, just last week, I had a student who's in 8th grade now, and he was coming back to help with an after-school tutoring program for younger students. And he came down the hallway and I didn't recognize him, but he just hugged me. And I thought, oh, and I figured it out a second later. But just those moments when students who aren't even in the building anymore choose to come back, that's very special. When I see students in the community, I ran into a former student last night when I was out running some errands. It's such a joy. We spent 180 days together and it wasn't enough. And so it's always exciting to see them one more time, either planned or unplanned, to be able to revisit that joy that we had in that short amount of time together.
I'm just gonna miss, we probably won't have as strong as a community in 5th grade as we do now. So,
all of us are going to be broken up into different classes. We won't stay as everyone together. But I'm probably going to miss most just being here, in the classroom doing the stuff we normally do.
you're just in this big community of people and you all get together and have fun. It's fun.
When I think about the memories that I want students to have it when they leave at the end of the year, I want the memories that are meaningful to them to stay with them at the end of the year. And I'm always surprised by what they are. Sometimes it's something we did in the hallway to pass time that seemed like a trivial moment. Or sometimes it's a joke that someone told. Or something that wasn't part of the plan for that day. But it happened anyway, and it stuck with them. I think, when I think about what students take away with them, I want them to remember that they were liked. I want them to remember what we were able to accomplish as a community that made this place different than other places. But the memories are up to them. I can't decide those for them. And it's always amazing to see what little things they pick out.
I'm gonna miss having Mr. Wooden because he's been really good. He's he's a really good teacher.
He's really awesome. He's like energetic, and he really like makes things maybe like more fun than they would be if they were like normal, what most people do.
I know him better than practically any of his other students that he's ever had. The one word I can describe him with is passionate.
Being a teacher in Beanville, being a citizen of Beanville, I feel like I'm better at that than about anything else. I feel like this is the person that I want to be. When I leave here, my family can tell you that I get frustrated and discouraged and moody and all of those other emotions that every human being has. But I think there's something about the ideals of Beanville that makes an idealized version of Matt Wooden. And I like that. I step into this place and I'm more hopeful. I step into Beanville and I'm more compassionate. I step into Beanville and I'm more patient. We've talked so much about those characteristics, and my expectations for students are that they're working toward being hopeful people, or they're working toward being empathetic people, or they're working toward being compassionate people. And so to avoid being hypocritical, I think I take on some of those same characteristics more here than I do in other parts of my life. I love this job, and I didn't expect to get as much joy from this job as I have. One of our phrases that we use a lot in Beanville is, I say, "Are you growing?" And they say, "Like a green bean." It's a joyful thing to be in a place where growth is just happening all the time, and it's so easy to see it. Growth academically and socially and emotionally. Fourth grade is just a marvelous place to be.
If you're ready, let's roll on. It's time to go.
G-O-O-D-B-B-E-N-I